welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into Dave Ramsey's work and break down the surprising and, very achievable path to becoming a millionaire. And it's probably not what you're thinking.
All right, so first things first, let's just bust a huge myth right out of the gate. When you hear that word millionaire, your mind probably jumps to this crazy Jeff Bezos-level lifestyle, right? Private jets, a whole fleet of fancy cars, mansions all over the world. But the data from the biggest study of millionaires ever, it tells a completely different story, a much more, normal story.
So if we're going to talk about how to get there, we first have to get on the same page about what there even is. It's time to redefine the goal. Forget what you see in the movies. Here's the key takeaway, okay? Being a millionaire isn't a lifestyle. It's not a feeling. It's just math. Plain and simple. It's your net worth. You take all the stuff you own, that's your assets, and subtract all the stuff you owe, your liabilities. If that number at the end is $1 million or more, well, congratulations, you're a millionaire. That's it.
And this is where it gets wild. The gap, the gulf between a millionaire and a billionaire is just, astronomical. Think about it. A millionaire might have a paid-off house. A billionaire has multiple estates with a full-time staff. A millionaire might use coupons. A billionaire doesn't even see the price tag. They're not playing the same sport. They're not even in the same solar system.
Ramsey has this fantastic analogy to really drive this point home. He says becoming a millionaire is kind of like climbing Klingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains. It's a tough hike, for sure, but totally doable for a regular person. Becoming a billionaire? Oh, that's Mount Everest, a dangerous life-or-death expedition that almost nobody is going to complete.
And this quote just nails the math behind it. A billion is 1,000 million. When you really think about that, it just clicks, right? The goal of becoming a millionaire is so much closer than our culture makes it out to be. It's a hill you can actually climb.
Okay, so now that we know what we're aiming for, how do we actually get there? Let's get into the action plan. Ramsey lays it all out in what he calls the baby steps, and he breaks the whole thing down into two totally different phases. First, a sprint, and then a marathon.
Phase 1 is an all-out sprint. This is where you go completely bananas to get your financial house in order. First, you scramble to save $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. Then, you unleash the debt snowball on everything except your house. You list your debts, smallest to largest, and just attack them, one by one. It's all about focus, what he calls gazelle intensity. Then, you finish the sprint by beefing up that emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months of expenses.
So, once you've won that sprint, you're debt-free, you've got a solid cushion, you can finally breathe and switch gears. Now we're in the marathon phase. This is the long, steady, patient part of the journey. You start investing 15% of your income for retirement, you're putting money away for your kids' college, and you're chipping away at paying off that house early. And yeah, you're doing all three of those at the same time. The last step? Well, that's the fun part. You just continue to build wealth and give like crazy.
But I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds good on paper, but does it actually work for, normal people? Is this just a nice theory? Well, the answer is a big, loud yes. The data is crystal clear, and honestly, the stories behind the data are even more powerful.
Get this. One of the most shocking things they found in the study was the top professions for millionaires. It's not what you'd guess at all. We're not talking about surgeons or high-powered lawyers. The top three are teacher, engineer, and accountant. Just regular, hardworking people who followed the plan.
And if that doesn't blow your mind, how about this? 1/3 of the millionaires in the study, 1 out of every 3, never had a 6-figure household income. Not in a single year. That just proves it is not about how big your shovel is. It's about being consistent with the shovel you have year after year after year. And then you hear stories like Jackie's. She was a single mom, grew up in poverty, and she followed these steps and became a millionaire. Her story is just incredible, and it proves, without a doubt, that where you start from has absolutely nothing to do with where you can finish. It's all about the steps you decide to take.
So look, the plan is straightforward. The data proves it works for ordinary people, which brings the final and maybe the most important part of this whole journey, right back to you.
Former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice put it perfectly. Your past doesn't have to dictate your future. The choices you're making right now, today, that's what's shaping where you're going. It's all about looking forward.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. The math works, the steps are laid out, the stories are real. The journey to becoming a millionaire,
It isn't really just about budgets and investing. It starts with the simple, powerful belief that this is a climb you can actually make. It starts with believing it's possible for you.